How to get rich in business? We're going to answer that great question in this video. Okay, let's rock. Let's talk about how to get rich in business. The beautiful thing about business is that it gives you endless opportunities. I want to share with you a story before I start giving you some pointers on how to get rich in business. This was an actual crazy true story that happened with me. So I'm from Kansas City, as you all know, and many years back when I was in my poker days, I had driven up to Council Bluffs, Iowa to play in a poker tournament. And before the actual tournament started, it was an actual pretty decent buy-in, at least a couple thousand, maybe 2,500. I don't think it was a 5,000, but it was something like a couple $1,000s. But we were playing a couple nights before and just playing some cash games and goofing off and whatnot. And I remember sitting next to a guy that was amazing. I think his name was John, like everybody else in this world, right? I think his name was John. And he was probably somewhere around 50 to 55 years old. And I was in my stages of, I'm going to win the World Series of Poker main event someday, and I'm going to keep trying, and I'm the latest and greatest in poker, whatever. And I had that mentality where, you know, a lot of poker players get when they're running good, they do really well. So the story's going somewhere, all right? So listen up. So basically what happened, I'm sitting next to this guy and we're goofing off and we're winning pots and we're losing and whatever. We're just having a blast. And I remember him, he asked me my story. He said, hey, you know, what's your story, kid? And probably in the time I was in my 20s or so. I said, well, you know, my ambitions are, I'm going to keep playing and learning the game and getting better and refining my skills so I can someday win the main event, win the World Series of Poker. And he goes, I got to ask you something because, you know, you had told me in this conversation you've got a business. I think that was back when I only had my trading card business. So I had one business at the time. He said, I got to ask you a question. What's the most money you can ever win in poker? And I'm like, I don't know. I think the main event's paying like $5 million. There's something like that, $5 million at the time. I was like, man, $5 million. Maybe someday it'll be 10 million. He goes, okay, it's a lot of money. What's the most money you can make in business? And I'm like, I got your point. Billions, right? You can make billions. And so he said, why don't you focus all your energy? I mean, you're obviously smart. Get going, push hard, do your stuff, and focus your energy on your business. Because you can basically, eventually, make enough money in your business every single year that it's like winning the main event. I mean, that's possible. Why don't you just focus on your business? And that was like the biggest epiphany that I ever had was watching a guy, and I'm like, so I got to ask, just because you're suggesting this, you got any experience like buying and selling a business? I mean, how have you done? He's like, yeah, actually, the reason I'm telling you this story is I just sold my business recently for like $20 million. It was something like that. I'll never forget it. It's like $20 million. He's like, yeah, it's like you told me you could win like $5 million in the main event. So I just won 4 main events. And you know, nobody's ever won the World Series of Poker 4 times, the main event 4 times. Nobody's ever done that, right? But he basically saying, I did, right? I did it through business. And you know, of course he's coached me. He's like, hey, look, it's not as much gamble, right? There's more structure to it, right? It's more calculated. There's better odds that you could actually succeed and do that than win in the main event, right? So anyway, you know, as time went on, you know, my illustrious poker career that lasted, you know, 8, 9, 10 years, you know, I still played charity events from time to time. And I do enjoy going to the World Series of Poker main event and playing every other year or every year, whenever I can get out there and hanging out with my poker buddies and stuff like that. But the reason I wanted to tell you the story is focus on, if you're going to focus on getting rich, understand the concept in business is it's a get rich slow thing. Okay, that's what it is. You don't get rich in business. Some people do, they get lucky. They're like the first to market. They invent something and they sell tons and millions of whatever they invented and they get rich fast. Okay, that happens. That's the anomaly, right? That's the rare case. But in general, a business has got the same pattern. It's like, it's got this like phase of building like the back end of the business and the idea and setting up the systems and the processes and figuring it all out, right? This is before you even start the business. And then you're like, okay, this concept, this business plan, we've got it all papered down. This should work. And then you start executing, right? You start building it. And then once you finally get open, once you got all your build out done and everything's set up and you hired your staff and you got your processes, now you're open for business. Now you got to start actually making money. Then you start getting going, and now it's about refining, right? Maximizing, optimizing, minimizing losses, casualties of costs, like advertising dollars getting lit on fire because you put your money into a bad spot that didn't produce, things like that. And you keep going. And then, most businesses, Most of them take 2, 3, 4 years to finally become profitable. It's just how it works. Because initially when you start a business, not only are you investing a bunch of your time, you're investing a bunch of your hard-earned money. It could be your life savings, it could be borrowed money, and you have to get that back just to get even. And then from there, you're actually starting to make money. So imagine having a business that takes 3 years to actually get your money back that you invested, and then you start making money. So if you start making money in year 4, you're basically like 3 years in of making no money. So the 4th year, like once you've completed the 4th year, you kind of have to divide how much you made in year 4 to cost average how much you've made in that business over the course of 4 years. So maybe you're like, oh, year 4, we made $100,000. Okay, you did, but you really averaged 25 grand a year for the first 4 years. But as you continue to grow and make more money, it becomes more worthwhile. So how do you get rich in business? All right, let's talk about a few different ways. So I've got a good friend that actually is in the business of flipping businesses, right? There's people that actually understand the game of buying an entire business and reselling it. And there's a lot of strategy to that, right? Tons of strategy. And you know, I've got a partner also in some of my businesses that's into that as well. And that particular person, he's developing a system right now where he wants to start teaching people how to do what he does because he's so successful doing it. So one way may be to actually, if you're good at buying and selling things and you feel like you're good at sizing people up and sizing numbers up, right? You're really good at interpreting, you know, financial statements and things like that. You might be able to just take somebody's life's hard work of a business, been doing it for 30 years, buy it at a bargain, maybe tweak a few things and resell it. That's one way to get rich, because think about it, the numbers are huge. And then there's systems of being able to buy those businesses with putting little to no money down. Okay, there's some financing. Sometimes there's ways to actually make that happen, that transition happen, where you can actually find the buyer to pay the seller, and you're kind of the broker in a sense, right? You just get it under contract, just kind of like brokering anything else. There's business brokers that are doing this exact same thing. So there's ways of making a lot of money simply by flipping businesses. And that's probably not what you were thinking I was going to say initially, but it was the first thing that came to mind just because I've got a couple people in my life that are doing so well doing that. So another couple ways to really get rich in business, I mean, absent of building up one single location of some business and taking it to the moon. You know, I know some people that have done that. They've had one business and they got like some exclusive right to do something. Say it was to like service electronics or something with like a Sony or something like that. They had like they had one business, one location, and they were the only way to have all that work done. Somehow they got that exclusivity. That's another way to get rich. So exclusivity, if you're able to find a corporation and you go to them and you're like, hey, is there a specific service or need, something you're needing right now that you're not able to do? And they're like, as a matter of fact, yeah. You know, we don't have anybody to repair all our electronics for our business. It'd be nice if we had another company that would handle all that for us, right? And they're like, okay, we'll give you the exclusive rights for the next 20 years if you do A, B, and C. And you sign that deal, and that company goes crazy up, right? They sell tons of their electronics. Everybody loves them. Their TVs are great. Their stereos are great. Their computers are great. And now you have the exclusive to repair all their stuff, right? So just that one single location of servicing that big company, I'm using Sony as an example, that could make it huge, right? You got all the different companies out there that maybe offer something like that. So look for niches. Look for niche ways that you can actually offer a specialized product or service to an existing company that's already out there kicking booty, right? They've already got big numbers, big sale numbers. So you don't want to compete with them. You basically want to go into business with them and help them. And so as they grow, you grow, right? And so that's one great idea. Another one, if you think you're up for the challenge, I'll tell you, it's something I've never done. I've been a part of, you know, in a sense, chain stores, right? With friends that, you know, we've had very similar businesses, and they weren't franchises. But another way is to have a goal to say, I'm going to set up the next greatest franchise here in the United States. And it could be something food related. It could be a workout facility like Orange Theory or something like that. But again, if you figure out a concept in a business, and rather than saying, okay, this is going to be my business, I love it, it's in my local city, and I'm going to run the yoga class every day, you could do that, but you're not going to get rich doing that. But if you take it from the way rich people do it, if you go take a few steps back and you say, how did these rich people do it, right? Or how did they do it? You look at the whole 30,000 foot view from the airplane and you look down and you say, okay. So what they did was they actually had this huge game plan. When they set up their business plan wasn't for one location. Their business plan was for 1,000 locations. They wanted 1,000 locations. And so they said, we're gonna perfect this one concept. We're gonna make sure it's our flagship store. Everybody loves it. Everybody's ranting and raving. It's something new. So they've taken an existing concept like Orange Theory. That's what I'm thinking about right now. And they've got, working out's no secret, right? But they took a specific, system, a specific workout. They've got their own stuff refined. And they said, this is how we're going to do it. They make it very cookie cutter, right? So they can open up in all different cities across the United States. And they do it so where they have 10, 50, 100, 500 locations, whatever, and they grow to the moon. So that concept is you've got to get in and look into getting into franchises and things like that. And that's a gigantic, monumental process, but so is every other business. So if you're going to put in the hours and you're willing to do this long term, which is what I'm teaching everybody, don't get into business just to get in and get out. Don't do that. It's okay if you're like flipping businesses. We were using that example because you can make a lot of money. I'm talking about if you're going to get into something, you're going to start something, get into it with that long-term vision. You're going to stay into it long-term. You're going to die for the cause kind of thing, because if you're putting that heart and soul into it, your business, everything's going to show. Everything from your systems, your processes, your employees, all the management that you hire, they're going to see how passionate you are about the business. They're going to say, wow, I want to get on board with this. They've got 3 locations now. Their goal is to have 30 in this market by the end of the year. Then they're going to 5 other markets. They're going to have 200 locations in the next couple of years. Then they're going to have 1,000. You can start that, and don't let anybody limit you, because I will tell you this. If you hear the success stories of a lot of people that have started franchises and how they made their money, holy cow, it's crazy. So that leads me to yet another, I don't know if it's the 3rd or 4th, I don't know where we're at on this, and how people really made it big in business. They did it through the method that Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, right? His concept, they did it through real estate. If you think about it, if you understand, when Ray Kroc got into McDonald's, the business of burgers and fries, so to speak, he didn't just get into the business of burgers and fries. He was buying all the most expensive real estate in the United States, buying the buildings, buying the land, and then he was paying off the bankers and the loans for those properties through the business that McDonald's generated. And then as time went, you had this successful corporation, McDonald's, that had all these locations throughout the United States and the world. I remember going to Paris one year. They had McDonald's in freaking Paris, France. Holy cow, you could get a Le Big Mac, I think is what it was. It was a freaking Big Mac, and it was Le Big Mac, but it tastes the exact same as it did in the United States. And so if you follow Ray Kroc, they got rich. They got rich twice. They got rich in McDonald's Corporation, but they got rich buying the real estate for the business. And I've done another video where I've explained in more detail about how you really go through what Ray Kroc did with McDonald's and how the numbers add up and make sense. All you got to be able to do is have a business that has a couple years of good tax returns. They don't all have to be great. Like I said, I've gotten an SBA loan before when my financials weren't super great. So even if your business isn't performing at the top, you might be able to do it. And the way you do it is, like I talk about, is with persistence. You're going to be persistent and persistent and persistent, and you're going to keep doing that. You're going to knock on every banker's door, every bank that exists in your city, until somebody sells you yes, until somebody sells you yes, until somebody tells you yes. You're going to sell them so they tell you yes. That's what I was trying to say, but I'm talking so fast. So anyway, that's a wrap. I hope I gave you some great ideas on how you can get rich in business. The possibilities are endless. If you're not in the game of business and you're like considering it, I'm telling you, it is definitely there's a lot of sharks in it, but don't be fearful. We all had to start somewhere. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. I've made tons of mistakes, and I continue to make mistakes, but I continue to learn and evolve and get better, and so will you. So remember, in life and in business, no matter how hard it gets, never give up. Push hard, keep pushing, and be the hustler.